welcome Jen Dick and to thank her for what she does for international poetry. I've known Jen for a long time. I was delighted when she became a columnist, and I'm delighted to hear now. So over to you.
So I should work out.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. So that I can keep my time. I'm going to read from, well, I write lots of different things, and I have this problem with my schizophrenic writing, as in what to read. So I'm going to share a little from Circuits, which is the book that came out from Corrupt, which is back in part because of Dorothy, and I was excited to share with someone who's interested in science and writing. This is, the titles are taken from George Johnson's book, In the Palaces of Memory. It's a popular science book about where neurologists have been trying to locate memory in the brain, and they're mixed with various ways, somewhat fictionalized memories in some way, shape, or form. The names of things and people are sometimes real people, sometimes not real people. Don't really matter. So, animal logic. It's a little frightening. From an encounter, the obvious but disturbing against your will, someone will partake of, as long as shards of glass heal the old dualist notion. With a rock, it's different. It was your body, Rue aux Ruelles, where we'd met, Léa's black velour and silver. I failed to run. All part of the job, departure, days pressed up against Jean Beausire, selling buzzing customers fast enough to the cutting edge, July, long and hot. The results? Science is theory. Becomes enshrined, comes off like butterfly collecting, pinned with flimsy labels, art of theory building. Assumption is that the designs of the experiment dry air. You stared. Going to make love? It was about missed apartments with a woman, Africa, Moroccans drinking pastis and sirop d'orgeat lounging. So when we hit the fountains in the when are we? Whenever you want. Of water in an attic, tight jeans and watching the stars, we were sweet with 6 hours. Wasn't enough. You walk away altered, sometimes permanently. Impose these changes, a humiliation. Carry inside you a speech based on separate things. Hurting someone. An idea. But is it, really? By working close, contest before the final in retrospect, science is a net, chloroformed. The unruly, creative, broached at all as a hypothesis. Once is quickly forgotten. The object objected to you, I. So then? We spoke nights on rooftops, replied films and bottles I desire. My tongue went upstairs, even the ladder. Police came. It was, I announced, my street's dusty ability to watch the too often prettied up winner. The competition facts are captured on a styrofoam board. In my return to Paris, front of Beaubourg, tables with blue glass, stones. It's rarely the subject, scientific process works to test and confirm. The prediction, to think that every brain has been truth. You, I, can say something, an insult, and I, you, live. It's lodged inside a wound, freedom that mind and body are from, hunting someone with. The obvious but disturbing notion of black silver at the ends of hoops, the lack of time or the bodies of, enclosed against the unfolding results. The way I touched you, something akin to vanishing. In this poem, you'll notice I steal not only from the pop science book, but you may recognize some authors, such as Stevens. There was someone who said, "You didn't credit Stevens, how dare you?" So Stevens, okay, we know. I guess I assume poetry audience, Stevens, you'll recognize they're not my words. The memory machine. I painted, constructing orders to impose rationale and electron, place at any time, measuring instruments, potentiality, a dog, floor, neurotransmitter, platonic phantom zones? You asked like a Russian novelist, thin and spidery. Books where I watched you, a Rimbaud cutting yourself in the blue-gray light, season curled up at the start of another autumn. You claimed responsibility for the French language. It could yank us together. We woke bed-tattered, marooned. To put out, we plied open copies for my education. Baudelaire, Dubuchet, I was en avance if late for romantics. arguing past Italian of Proust, throwing the essential that is an ancient order on a chaotic cannot be said to until we cause it exist in probability waves, ion channels, electrocution, eyes like a fern, blues. You looked silver-aged, fingers fragmented, grew an angry community. I watched in for another the session de rattrapage, which is retake exams. Glassy lights at anchor there, in the air out at sea, fixing, arranging, deepening. Ours was a talent for wheedling from the inessential human, longing, a world. But just to occupy a certain distance, to collide with our states of pure dual concepts, tree, quark, time, what exists in somewhere. Tell me, I said, why light, as in toward night, masters emblazoned zones, enchanting theorists? Did the singing end in the town? Why did fishing boats descend, tilting, portioned on fiery poles? I was an artist, after all, high on wine, fine lingering over Coulebert's Dire de poetry, preferring the brass rollover, asking you about Franco-American politics, if you'd read Du Bellay or wanted to throw the towel around. You flopped over in your sleeping, in red, straight from the woven stories. Whiskey eyelids on your own in Paris twisted. You were an unsung Apollo, bald and coming to. Settled by the sin, drowsing as shears rays clattered close by, I was on an Arabian carpet. The role of Demeter, of Heraclitus, of Emily Dickinson, you said, was taken. Dream of the naked theater, dark-lit tears blowing blue back at ya. Wasn't even a misdemeanor, a glance and then, there is no dry eye in the house. Taking a bow, bowled over, I shaved off a sentence, another, flouted and fluted filigree. What kind of music muscles its way into your heart? Hardened, harder, throw you against the bed, a wall, a window. When would the wind crack the seals? The scapegoat pinch the ceramic foil. The angle down tunnel passes Medusa, and which way should I hold up that mirror, that shield, Perseus? I thought I spotted Eros fingering Psyche in a back room. It's just that so much is pent up. Even the Pope admits repenting is not an option. Too old, too pagan, foregone, foretold foreskin mixed with eye of newt, and yet the seers refuse to divine a detour out of this tale. Shall I hire a reviser? There is something to be said for reconstitution. I nail her in, here, just in case, just until. Hold me down, I say, yes! Giving her the saddle, crying out, Ur and Yuri, and what's better than a toss of the dice? Might come up snake eyes, might go for broke. Led me out of the casino in handcuffs, not the fuzzy kind, but even then I didn't break a blush. I know our next hand's going to be royal. You think flush. Just you wait and see. I'll bet the house on it, taking 'em all down with me. So that's Orpheus. Believe it or not, babe, this jungle's offline. That's Yuri. It's a flashback to adolescence. Off-limit Wi-Fi, broke MP3 player, no streaming or downloaded films left to watch in that sweet home molasses. I'm like a cup holder, canned in the aquarium, a scaled dividend. What part of my affection cannot be cashed in when you fall on hard times? Got a bailiff at the door wondered, where's he at? Can't go blaming me, Orf. All I did was follow. Cough, trip, step, stomp, beg you to turn, sending out my psychic telepathic feathers? It was a howl, a hole in your head, not like I need ya, I told him. A better man's sure to come round the corner any day now. But standing at the window, a lioness on guard, I steep in sanctioned time off to be relieved of duty, at ease, eased out into the nighttime streets and not hear that song. You know the one, ours. Given the next gen, a hand means something. Not absence, not longed for, not out of my grasp. Jump-started rail cars roar me up and under, out along the queue, back on the B, missing Tati in the days when Gare du Nord looked like a faded tramp stamp. There is something to be said for mistakes imprinted on the body. Mine is your lyre, Lyre, vibrating. So that's a touch of orphanary. And I'm going to end with a couple poems from the science work I'm working on right now is on the CERN, the Centre Européen de Recherche Nucléaire in Switzerland. And these all began, I dreamt, which I stole from Bolaño. I told someone I didn't like Bolaño, and I said, you have to read more Bolaño. And I read these poems that he did, which began, I dreamt, so I got stolen from him. There's reference to the LHC, which is the Large Hadron Collider, and to ITER. ITER is a project in the south of France to build a fake sun fusion energy type thing. So I'm just going to read a couple of these to end with. And they don't have any titles. They're CERN and numbered, so I dreamt the world began again in a test tube. It was blue and green with a dash of brown streaking through it. I opened the tube and lifted it to my nose. It smelled of swamps and gladiolas. It burned. I dreamt there was a contest to rename the LHC. Though I knew it was in poor taste to propose the universe's cock ring, I couldn't help myself. It was with great surprise that I learned 2 months later of my win. I dreamt I was cradling a massive dead star in the palm of my hand. I was so stunned, I was literally struck speechless by its presence there, gently afloat on my skin, tickling me. So I walked around at CERN, holding it out, proffering it, as if at show and tell. But no one seemed to understand. Everyone nodded and strode on, unblinking, unsurprised, as I gaped and gobbled up air and attempted unsuccessfully to grunt out, a star, a light, a miracle. I dreamt the firewall debate only engendered slews of new language until the OED could no longer keep up with the scientific lingo being born out daily, hourly, by the minute and second. Sub-subatomic particles beyond leptons, neutrinos, the Higgs bosons, Cherenkov detectors, and particulates of spooky matter meant to be quantum post-post pre-octanic sub-or post-organic space rooting in the rayites of bits of bundles of blotchers needing names for whatever that green goo was or could be, a line crossing an advanced version of a nuclear electro-instascope. But then even those words were brought into doubts by soup-canning Maldacena theories of particulate redirections. Translators, linguists, and theorists alike were collapsing from exhaustion. Servers and backup generators were being fried. Bundles of wires in and out of cerebral cortexes were called into question until there was nothing left to do but unplug it all. Go dark, pause, wait, sleep. I dreamt that Stephen Hawking came back in 2055 for a visit. Only when he stopped by my office at CERN to give me a few handy tips and suggest I consider a new theoretical approach to my quantum ponderings, he could walk. He looked, in fact, quite fit, like a white Jesse Owens, ready to break that 1935 world record for the 220-yard dash. As he spoke, spouting out all sorts of keys to the universe as supplied to him from beyond the grave, I merely marveled at his musculature, at the way the sinews on his arms moved, at his upright stance, at his head held sturdily on a functional neck. That's why, when he vanished back into whatever space-time wormhole ghost landscape he had come from, I was left without a single clue as to what he had said. All that information had fallen onto deaf ears. I dreamt that the director of CERN decided it was high time we sued Chippendale's megastar Ian Ziering for his use of hard probes as the 2014 show-stopping Vegas headline act. Hard probes, the director explained to the jury and judge, are the intellectual property of CERN. This, in turn, led to a vast number of international physics labs and noted physics researchers, from Ramona Voigt to Carlos Lorenzo, as well as the 2013 Cape Town University Hard Probes conference organizers, to leap into the fray, debating vociferously before a perplexed audience about the origins and issues at stake with quarkonium and electromagnetic probes, everyone claiming the term hard as their very own. Meanwhile, Ziering had slipped up to the podium in his Velcro-off chaps just in time to halt the lab-coated scientist's fistfight by holding up a massive cobalt synthetic probe which, as he flopped it around the air, remained quite stiff. "I think," he proclaimed clearly into the sudden silence, "this matter can be easily rectified. Just tell me who it is that manufactured this particular hard probe, and the proceeds from the show are all yours." Two more? Two little more?
Two small ones.
Okay. I dreamt of ITER before ITER was ITER. I dreamt it backwards and upside down. I dreamt it cost $10 instead of $10 billion. I dreamt no one wanted any part of it, too distracted as they were by the Côte d'Azur, the real sun winning them over, distracting from the idea of faking it. I dreamt that ITER was in fact a mistake for re-ITER, and the sun itself was laughing because really it knew what this was all about, this reaching into the future, which was the past, a sort of mirrored reflection, repetition. Yep, in case you haven't guessed it, messing with the bang big enough to become the force behind all the sundials was really pushing God's buttons. You want to start over? I dreamt he shouted down at us. Then fine, make your own sun, and blow yourselves up, and back in time and give it another go. I dare you. I dreamt no one was paying attention to him. I dreamt of little green Martians in Timbuktu, of Kepler's mountains, of a Newtonian halo drawn over my skin using a pair of compasses. I heard someone down the hall whisper, "When we lean together, our burning profiles shatter." What I thought was that I had been slipped something by the R&D department. Said the black funerary urn between us, and toasted an imaginary Einstein. "Oh, nobody can work the negative spaces like you, kiddo." Da Vinci was chained in a corner. Someone at CERN explained that otherwise he took off into the night. Many sightings had caused a kind of Templar-esque society to brew up in the villages nearby. "Can't have that," one of the secretaries by the front door buzzed. I squinted. I blinked. Da Vinci's beard seemed to be growing longer by the second. I thought of embryos in the 8th week, making 250,000 new neurons every minute. Far off in Canada, a poet wrote, "Embossing tools etch patterns onto gilt." Fair enough. But I figured I should cut out while I was ahead, in a kind of cumulus nimbus. Turning out the gate, I spotted something not unlike a cheap neon sign. God awaits, or was it awakes? I hit the gas, soaring into a new night. CERN, only a spot on the horizon behind me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.